There are moments in life when the world falls into silence, not because it has grown quiet, but because something greater has risen above the noise. I remember standing still, surrounded by the pulse of a busy street, when a voice carried through the air. It was not just a sound, not just words rising and falling. It was a call, ancient and powerful, that seemed to reach into the very bones of the earth. In that instant, I felt the weight of time. The voice was not speaking to me alone. It was speaking to everyone, to anyone willing to listen. It spoke across languages, across beliefs, across the walls we build between ourselves. It was not asking for attention. It was commanding it, and with that command came stillness. I found myself listening not with my ears, but with my heart. There's no room for distraction, no space for the restless thoughts that usually cloud the mind. The sound lifted me out of myself, away from the rush of the moment, and placed me in a space I could only call sacred. We live in a world that rarely pauses. Noise surrounds us, machines, voices, the endless hum of living. Yet here was something that cut through all of it. It was a reminder that humanity, in all its searching, shares a common thread, the longing for peace, for purpose, for something greater than ourselves. In that silence, I faced myself. Every flaw, every fear, every doubt seemed to rise to the surface, only to be met with calm. The call demanded reverence, but it also offered mercy. It asked me to be still, and in being still, to be honest. And when the final note faded, I remained unmoving. The world rushed on, the clamor returned, but something inside me had shifted. For a brief moment, I had been reminded of the gift we too often forget, the gift of silence, not emptiness, but fullness. Not absence, but presence. That is the power of a voice carried on the wind. That is the power of being called to listen. There comes a moment in every life when the world itself seems to pause, not because everything around has stopped, but because something far greater has broken through the ordinary and demanded stillness. I remember such a moment, when the air carried a sound that seemed to quiet every restless thought, every hurried step, every heartbeat that longed to rush ahead. It was the sound of devotion rising into the sky, and though I did not fully understand the words, I understood their weight. They were not meant for the ear alone. They were meant for the soul. As the voice rang out, the usual noise of life, engines rumbling, people calling, footsteps echoing, faded into the background. The city itself seemed to hold its breath. It was not silence in the sense of emptiness. It was silence in the sense of reverence, as if the world recognized the arrival of something sacred and chose to honor it. In that stillness, I felt both very small and profoundly connected, as though I were standing at the threshold of something eternal. The moment asked nothing from me but presence. It stripped away the clutter of thought, the weight of worry, the constant pull of the past and the future. There, in that stillness, all that remained was now. And in that now, I could feel a truth that is so often drowned out, that life is more than movement, more than achievement, more than noise. It is also pause, reflection, surrender. What struck me most was not just the beauty of the sound, but the way it commanded silence without force. No one told me to stop and listen. No hand compelled me to be still. And yet I could not move. My spirit refused to break the moment. It felt as if time itself had slowed, so that something higher could be heard. When it ended, life resumed. The hum returned, the chaos picked up, but I carried something within me I had not held before, a memory of stillness, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful experiences are not found in motion, but in the quiet surrender to a single sacred call. The human voice is unlike anything else in this world. It carries with it not only sound, but meaning, emotion, and presence. When a voice rises into the air, it does more than deliver words. It reaches into the spaces between people, bridging gaps that no other force seems able to cross. A single tone, a single breath shaped into sound can move hearts, calm storms of thought, and awaken something long dormant within us. That is the mystery and the power of the voice. What I heard that day was more than a call. It was a reminder that a voice is not bound by the language it speaks. Even if the words remain unknown, the spirit within them is unmistakable. The cadence, the rise and fall, the weight of devotion woven into each note, these things speak in a language that belongs to all of humanity, a language of longing, of reverence, of surrender. And it is in that universality that the true strength of the voice is revealed. Unlike the written word, which waits quietly on a page, the voice demands to be felt in the present. It is alive, moving through the air, resonating in the body as much as in the ear. When it carries faith, it does not simply declare it, it embodies it. It transforms sound into something greater than sound, presence into something greater than presence. In that moment, it was not just the singer who spoke. It was generations of tradition, centuries of devotion carried forward in a single breath. And I, who stood listening, felt smaller in its presence, yet strangely more whole. The power of the voice was not in its volume, but in its depth. It was not about commanding authority, but about revealing truth. It reminded me that within every person lies this same gift, this same instrument capable of healing, of uniting, of reaching across the chasms we create. That day, the voice rose, and the world listened. And I realized that when the human voice is given to something greater than itself, it becomes more than sound. It becomes a vessel of the sacred, echoing in the hearts of all who hear it. There are times when life feels entirely contained within the walls of our own routines. The constant movement, the obligations, the endless noise that fills our days. But then something breaks through, something so profound that it reminds us how small those walls truly are. When I stood there, listening, I felt that reminder rise within me. The sound was not just a melody carried on the wind. It was a call to look beyond myself, beyond the moment, beyond the endless repetition of ordinary life. It pointed upward, outward, inward, all at once, towards something greater than I could touch or see. It did not arrive with force, but with a quiet authority that asked nothing and yet gave everything. The sound carried a weight I could not explain, a weight that spoke of countless souls before me, who had stood still in the same silence, who had felt the same reverence in their own hearts. I realized then that I was not alone, not just in that place, but in existence itself. I was standing in the long stream of humanity's yearning for the eternal, for peace, for connection with what lies beyond the limits of flesh and bone. In that moment, all the things I thought important seemed to shrink. The endless concerns, the fleeting struggles, the noise of ambition. None of them mattered compared to the presence of something infinite. It was not a denial of life's troubles, but a reordering of them, a reminder that there is more to us than the weight we carry each day. What I heard was not simply sound, it was direction. It pulled me toward humility, toward gratitude, toward awe. It reminded me that no matter how strong, how accomplished, how certain we believe ourselves to be, we are part of something far greater than our own understanding. And that truth does not diminish us. It enlarges us. It gives our small lives depth. As the call faded into the air, I stood still, knowing I had been reminded of a truth the world so often forgets, that we are never alone and that there is always something greater calling us to listen. No matter where we come from, no matter the names we use for the divine, there is something within us that leans toward reverence. It is as if the human spirit is shaped to recognize the sacred, even when it appears in forms unfamiliar to us. When I heard that call rise into the air, I did not know the words, yet I understood the feeling. It was not foreign. It was deeply human. It spoke of longing, of surrender, of a desire to touch what lies beyond the reach of our hands. And though traditions differ, that yearning is the same in every corner of the world. I have seen it in temples where incense curls toward the sky. I have felt it in churches where hymns echo through stone walls. I have witnessed it in the silence of mountain tops where people bow not to an altar, but to the vastness of creation itself. Each expression is unique, yet the essence does not change. It is the same reverence, the same humbling of the self before the infinite. That day, as the voice carried through the city, I felt that universality is not bound by culture or creed. It was woven into the very fabric of what it means to be human. And in that realization, I found a kind of unity. For a moment, the divisions we so often cling to seemed meaningless. Borders, languages, histories, none of them could erase the truth that every heart seeks the same stillness, the same peace, the same assurance that life is connected to something greater. Reverence in its truest form is not about separation. It is about recognition. Recognition that we are fragile, that we are finite, and that there is beauty in kneeling before the infinite together. As the sound faded, I understood that this longing binds us more tightly than any difference can divide us. It is not a weakness to revere. It is our greatest strength. For in that shared reverence lies the possibility of understanding, of compassion, of peace. It is there, in that common thread, that we glimpse our humanity at its most profound. When the sound filled the air, it did more than quiet the world around me. It quieted the world within me, and in that stillness I was confronted with something I could not avoid. Myself. Every doubt, every fear, every unspoken truth seemed to rise to the surface, as if the call had unlocked a door I had long kept closed. It was not an easy encounter. To be faced with the self, stripped of distractions, is never easy. But it is necessary. There, in the silence, I could hear the questions I had buried beneath the noise of life. What do I believe? What do I seek? What am I running from? The voice demanded no answer, yet it left no room to hide. I realized how often we fill our days with movement, with talk, with endless distraction. Not because we are busy, but because we are afraid of what we might hear if we stop. That day, I stopped. I listened, and in listening, I saw parts of myself I had long ignored. The confrontation was not harsh. It was not judgment. It was clarity. The sound did not condemn, it revealed. It peeled away the armor of pride, the mask of certainty, the weight of control, and it left me vulnerable. And yet, in that vulnerability, there was a strange strength. I discovered that the self I often avoid is not my enemy. It is my beginning. To meet it honestly is to begin again. The call reached deep into the places I do not show the world, and it asked me to be still there, to accept my failings, to acknowledge my fears, and to recognize that even in my weakness I am seen. I understood then that the greatest journey is not outward but inward, not toward conquest but toward truth. And sometimes it takes a voice rising out of the air to break us open and lead us back to ourselves. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness, but in truth, it is one of the most profound gifts we can experience. When the final notes of the call faded into the air, I was left standing in that silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. It was a stillness that filled every space, wrapping itself around me, pressing gently against the noise I carried within. In that moment, I understood that silence is not nothing. Silence is everything we so often overlook. It is in silence that the heart begins to speak. Without the constant pull of distraction, the mind slows, the spirit steadies, and we are given room to breathe. That day I felt the weight of the world lift, if only for a moment, and I saw clearly what so often remains hidden in the chaos of life. Silence revealed the beauty of being alive, the fragility of time, and the depth of something greater holding it all together. Not an escape. It was a return. The gift of silence is rare in a world that worships noise. We fill every pause with words, every gap with sound, as if we fear what might rise up in the quiet. But true silence does not harm us. It heals us. It gives us the courage to listen, not only to the world, but to ourselves, to the truths we bury, to the voice that whispers beneath all the others. As I stood there, I realized the call had not left me empty. It had left me full of peace, of humility, of wonder. The silence that followed was not hollow. It was sacred. It was a reminder that beneath all our striving, all our speaking, all our noise, there lies a deeper rhythm, one we can only hear when we allow ourselves to be still. That is the gift of silence. The chance to remember who we are, the chance to touch what cannot be spoken, and the chance to find strength not in sound, but in stillness. Then sound, more than ritual, more than the voice rising into the sky. It was a reminder of our shared humanity, of the longing we all carry, of the truths we try so hard to outrun. It called me to listen, not only to the world outside, but to the world within. It showed me that reverence, in any form, binds us together, and that silence is not an absence, but a presence that restores the soul. The call ended, but its echo remains, and in that echo I carry a lesson. That life is not measured only in what we do, in what we say, and how loudly we live, but also in the moments we surrender, the moments we allow ourselves to be still. For it is in those moments that we encounter something greater than ourselves, something eternal, something sacred. That day, the voice rose, and I listened, and in listening, I was changed.